with Julia and Philip Siracusa, sponsored by Carnation, airing live on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM in New Orleans. This show's entrance has been edited, produced, and directed by Gwen Clapper from Perfect Trust Productions, LLC. You can find us at perfecttrustproductions.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday night segment of Horsefly Chronicles Radio with myself, Julia Siracusa, and Phil Siracusa. We're broadcasting live from the International Public Radio and the United Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans. Tonight's show is fully sponsored by Carnation, so we want to thank them for their sponsorship. We love them. You'll have to do a few things in order to participate. Go over to the YouTube channel, UFO Paranormal Radio or International Public Radio. You can also go into all of the Facebook stations, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, UFO Undercover with Joe Montaldo, News on the Flip Side, Twitch, SoundCloud, Podbeam, and also go over to our group, Horsefly Chronicles Radio, and join in if you haven't. And if you have any questions for our guest, please ask. So tonight, guys, we have an amazing guest. We're really, really excited to speak with. So please welcome Elly Molina to the show. Elly is a highly recognized educator. She holds a master's degree from NYU and has been educating for 4 decades. She's appeared on network TV discussing intuitive development in children. She's also the founder of PSI Kids and co-founded a private school for children where children learn to use more of their minds in a very different manner. She's also written many books, and you can find them all on Amazon.com. So please, let's welcome her to the show.
Welcome.
Yay!
Thank you. Thank you, Julia and Philip, for having me here tonight. It's such an honor. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you have a different thing going on here that we've never interviewed anyone with these abilities as far as
I'm excited.
The forks and spoons, and I'm really intrigued.
Oh, we have a lot of questions.
Yeah. So, I actually knew somebody back in the day that can do that.
Really?
I'll get into that later on the show, but let's get into the story.
Uri Geller can do it. He's in his 70s. Uri Geller, and he does spoon bending. That made him famous back in the day. And he's got a whole museum right now in near Tel Aviv, Israel. It's the Uri Geller Museum of Spoon Bending, and all of his artifacts are there. It's very fascinating.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah. I would love to do that.
Yes. So, Elly, take us to the beginning of your story. What made you form PSI Kids? And, did anything happen to you in your childhood that made you really want to focus your life helping children and adults?
Yeah, of course. Usually it starts out that we have some sort of childhood experience. This is my belief. And when we're kids, we make these decisions to do something. And I was a highly intuitive child and psychic. And I didn't know I was psychic because I didn't know there was a word for it. But I had dreams, and I had very unusual dreams when I think about them. And I remember them even. They were so vivid. And one of the dreams that I do recall, I remember many dreams, but there was one in particular when I was maybe 5 or 6, I can't really say how old I was, where a friend of ours, a friend of my parents, had passed, and I was walking with her, and I was holding her hand, and I asked her, I said, how come I can see you? You're dead. And then I don't know exactly what her terms were when, again, because I was little, but basically what it came down to was that the dead walk among the living, and only few can see us. And that's what she told me. And it was like, oh, wow, this kind of, now when I look back, it was like, that's a lot for like a 6-year-old to take in and understand. But it registered, and I recalled, and I remembered that. And then when I was, again, 5, 6 years old, I think it was 5 for this one, we had this huge painting in our home, and it fell off the wall. And I looked at my father and mother and I said, "Oh, Mr. Robertson died." And then it turned out that Mr. Robertson passed away when, at the time that the painting fell off the wall. Because I mean, this painting would have never fallen off. My parents just looked at me. I was like, okay. And I think about these things now. When I was in kindergarten, my Halloween costume was a fortune teller outfit. I mean, that's what I selected for myself. So one thing led to another. And by the time I was 10, and this goes back, I grew up in the 60s, and by the time it was 1963, I was 10 years old already. And my parents got me a black and white television set, which I kept in my room, obviously. And they didn't have any problems with me watching, I don't know if you know these shows, One Step Beyond, The Twilight Zone, Alfred Hitchcock. So that was my, go to bedtime TV. And as far as I was concerned, it was all real. That was just total reality. And it just, one thing led to another. By the time I was 12, my mom gave me an astrology book and said, "Here, go read." And I started, back in the day, we had to cast our own charts using ephemerises. Everything was by hand. There was no internet. So I started casting charts. And then just, again, I became really highly psychic, played telepathic games, knew who was on the phone, just kept that aliveness until I got into my 20s. And then it wasn't cool to be psychic or to have these abilities. So I would suppress them, ignore them. And then by the time I was in my 30s, early 30s, it was like, I just can't do this anymore. I called myself a closet psychic. So here I was an educator during the day. I was teaching school, coming home, doing psychic readings. I was doing, living a dual life. On the weekends, later on, I would go to the Long Island Psychic Fair, work there part-time. And then I also worked for California Psychics for many years. That's the online psychic company. Mm-hmm. So, but I would be a teacher and teach all of these things, and not teach these things yet. It wasn't cool to teach these things yet. Mm-hmm. However, then I'd come home and do it. And then it was in the 80s, at some point, I think like the later 80s, where I started noticing that the kids were doing these activities. We had Friday game day, and we would play these games, Scrabble, anything to increase vocabulary, thinking. And I started noticing these kids were highly telepathic while they were doing these games. So I started switching the games and started playing a few more telepathic games as opposed to just language games, kind of, played a little bit like that, but didn't do anything with it until 2005. That's really where I said, okay, we can take all of this out of the closet now and start using it. And that was when The Secret came out and What the Bleep. So I figured if those movies are out, then I can start doing this with children. So I did.
Wow.
So it seems to me you had a gift, and it grew with you.
Yeah.
And what's different about this gift is that you can do things with it besides remote viewing, which is big, and psychic readings. You can, again, do things with the mind, telepathically.
Yeah. And here's the thing, we all can. Again, we all can. That's why I love teaching this to kids, because when we start with children, there are no filters. And, one of the things that as an adult, so if I were to tell you, hey, we can do something called, I'm kind of bouncing around, but there's a point to it. If I'm going to tell you, hey, we're going to go bend some spoons today, and we're going to bend spoons, or we're going to practice something known as psychotronics, where we use the power from our hands. It's kind of like Reiki healing, but we're going to use this for other things, to manipulate objects, to manipulate things. Most people are just going to say, you know what? That's not true. They have disbelief. They're not going to believe that it's possible. And again, right there, Julia, Phil, the moment we start doubting that it's possible, we have a really hard time overcoming those convictions. So the doubters are going to fail most of the time, and they will prove themselves right because they doubt it. And the kids don't have these filters. They're like, okay, we're going to go play some telepathy. What's that? All right, here, well, take a look at this playing card. What number do you see behind it? And they're like, oh, 2 of clubs. That's right. So there's no filter, there's no fear, there's no expectation initially, okay, when we start working. Later on, the filters start coming, and that's where consciousness is really a great part to have. That's the other thing that I do with them, is to raise their consciousness so that the filters remain unfiltered or very thin, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So when you're doing, let's say, you want to bend a fork or a spoon, is there any part of you that believes it's the possibility that it's a spirit helping you?
I don't. I don't call it. Again, this is a very I look at it as a very personal thing, because we can say, okay, the spirit's going to come help me do this, and I can call in. Somebody can call in a spirit. Do I say prayers? Yeah, I like to go to what I call the God source. So now this gets into what is the God source? Is that a spirit? Is that God? What is that? So I personally, this is me, I don't teach this because this is, again, a private thing. People can go to where they want to go. I go to the God source. Like, I check in with what I call the higher power, and I see it as a white light that comes up through here into me, and that power also works within me.
Okay.
So that can be like a healing power as well.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So moving this back to the kids, when I was teaching, not spoon bending with the children, but we were teaching healing the planet. So what the kids would do would be to sit quietly, in circle time, have them close their eyes, and then take their hands, rub them together like that, hold them out, kind of like, Reiki style. And then we would visualize parts of the planet healing, or people who were in circumstances that needed healing. And we would do remote healing for people and for the planet. So it is very similar. It's that kind of moving the energy where it is needed.
Right.
There should be more people like that.
I wish that we had, more people like you when we were growing up, to be honest. We had parents, and my mother, she believed, but she's still, oh my God, the light's going on and off.
I don't know if you see what's going on. I mean, there's a light.
I love it. See?
I've never seen it through that before.
Something's
not in here.
On. Yeah.
What was I saying?
You're talking about your mom.
My mom, she would believe, definitely would believe me, but she still wouldn't sit there and really help educate us on what she believed to be happening in our house. So it would be nice, to have someone like you back there. And it's the parents, that the kids that you're teaching, that they're so open to it and they're allowing them to be taught, right?
Well, yeah, there's a question like, do some parents say, it's, again, this is just talk.
Yeah.
Some people would believe it's the act of witchcraft or Satanism. I don't personally. I just want to put that out there. But there are people who don't really understand. Do you come across that at all?
I personally don't. I only started coming across this on YouTube comments, but those are not people that I know. So, for example, when I was doing some YouTube shows, and then at the bottom, and there were these comments like this, stop this work, it's the devil's work. So, but I've never heard that. No one's ever said that to me personally. No one's ever said that to my face, but that doesn't mean that they may not be thinking it or anything, but no one's ever said that to me.
I wouldn't think that the parents of the children that you're teaching would, because am I right? Like, they must believe in their kids, and they must believe in it to send them to you.
Well, first of all, the parents have to be doing this work also.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't really make sense. So in the programs, I always encourage the parents to do the work with the kids. So back in the day, when I was doing in-person workshops, always had the parents and the children. And sometimes I would do the workshops with parent and kid sitting, they'd be sitting next to each other. Or then sometimes I would put the parents like as an audience where they could participate from a distance so that they wouldn't be directing their child. Because, parents have a tendency to, let's call helicopter their kids and want their kids to get the right, and they want their kids to get it right if we're doing these activities. And that's where the parents have to take a back seat on that one. So or they have to do it themselves, and which is what I discovered would be best, that the parents go sit in the back and do the work there by themselves, and their kids can sit up closer and do the work with me. And that worked nicely.
And how would you deal with a child, say, who's completely acting out because they do not know how to access these gifts?
Okay, so the people that come to me they don't fall in kind of cold turkey. And the programs that I have, I explain everything. So I go through everything step by step, Julia. So example, right now I'm doing everything online, and for now. So in the online program, it's video, and it's just instructional video, hands-on. And so everything is explained. So basically there's nothing to I'm not going to say there's nothing to act out over, because it's really very it's very educational. It's all instructional. So, and the other thing, I'm going to circle around. One of the things that I teach awareness. I teach controlling the body. That's my first lesson. So before I even begin doing any work, we learn how to, I call it tucking away your body, and learning how to take your awareness and your concentration and your focus to bring it to a certain point in time, in space. So that is something that I start teaching kids as early as age 3, if they're verbal enough. No, if they're verbal enough, not online, obviously, no 3-year-olds online with me, but in classes when I used to teach them, when I used to teach the kids physically, if a child can, they're kind of verbal at that age, and they are then taught how to focus, sit still, and put their awareness on a particular object.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Put their awareness on a particular object.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. I like that.
So I think it says you stop the fountain, or a fountain.
Oh, you heard that? Yeah. So that was like one of my favorite stories. Again, that's using the psychotronic powers, and that is the power that is within us. It is very powerful, Phil. This is the kind of energy that we hear about when moms lift, cars off their kids. This is a real powerful, intense energy that we all possess. We all possess it. We just need to learn how to work it. So it was during, now there were some people, yeah, well, I was going to say people don't believe it, and some people do believe it. And I'm not attached to if anybody believes it or not, because I know what actually happened. So it was during COVID that I was working from home, and, everything was so quiet that the fountain, which is aesthetically outside, which is at my window, and it was aesthetically so beautiful, but it was pounding 24/7 nonstop. It was like hammering all the time. So when I was working and even just sitting, opening up the window, this fountain was so annoying that I wanted to rip it out if I could. But then I decided one day, the thought entered my mind. It was like, you know what? You're using all these I was teaching a psychic development course also at the same time. And I'm like, well, you're teaching all these things. Why don't you use the psychic development thing right now, the psychotronic power, to turn off the fountain? So I said, you know what? I'm going to do this. So I stood in front of the window, And I spent about 10 minutes, again, grounding myself, bringing in the white light energy, and then putting my hand, you're going to see my palm, sticking my hand out at that fountain and speaking out loud and declaring it that it would stop and that it would stop, it would stop. I did this about 10 minutes. And of course, nothing happened because mass to mass, things take longer. That's not like in the movies where something happens necessarily instantaneously. It takes longer. Anyway, after 10 minutes, I walked away. I stopped. I let it be. And I didn't even think it was really going to work. I wasn't sure. I'd never done it before. I come back, and all of a sudden I noticed it was really quiet. And I look outside the window and the fountain had stopped. It had stopped. So then I call it like playing a game with the fountain, because maintenance came, repaired it. It happened. I did it again. They came, they repaired it. Then maintenance wanted to know, I did overhear this conversation when they were outside fixing it. Maintenance wanted to understand why only this fountain was not working when all the other fountains were fine. And they didn't understand it. Anyway, one day I was coming home and my next door neighbor calls me and she said, did you look outside? And I said, no. She goes, they just dismantled all the fountains. They took all of them out. There are no more fountains. And I'm like, okay, good.
Wow.
Crazy.
So, I mean,
That's amazing.
there are things that we can do. This is just a real quick story. Again, I call it using psychotronic powers. You can call it whatever you want. We were at a wedding in the summertime, and it was an outdoor wedding. There were thunderstorm clouds right above us at the time the wedding was going to start. I called a group of people over. We sat outside. We looked up at the sky. We moved the clouds. People could say that that's not true, but they were all there. They witnessed it. We did it. We moved the clouds. The clouds moved. The thunderstorm happened somewhere else. You could see the clouds. But where we were at the outdoor wedding, there wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was beautiful. And, it's called cloud bursting. There's an actual term for it where we do cloud burst, and that's using psychotronic powers also.
Yes. We can definitely use you over here.
That's an amazing ability.
Yes.
I'm kind of speechless about that.
Well, again, people don't, I don't know. There are disbelievers. I mean, and then again, there are the people that I work with who have learned how to do this and are able to do this themselves, Phil. And can I call you Phil or Philip?
Well, Phil's good. Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. All right. And, I teach this to my clients when I work with people one-on-one. And I do teach this to them also because many, people have things that they want to solve or manifest in their lives. And we all know that we can do affirmations till the cows come home, and that's not necessarily going to get what we need. But that's not necessarily going to make it happen. But when we start using our psychotronic powers, then all of a sudden that combined with affirmations starts to move things really quickly, easily. Amazing. There are amazing stories that have happened for my clients using their abilities, and this can be taught.
Now, have these abilities been does anybody in your family have them? Does it go down, generation to generation?
Not in my family.
Okay.
No.
I do have something funny to say. I mean, so if I had your powers and your ability, I would pick the lottery numbers, and I'd be watching it live and making sure those numbers come out by watching it on television somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
I have to say that.
Well, there's a group of us that do work on that, okay? But there are so many factors, with the lottery. I mean, I have a couple of clients who are steady not jackpot winners. I'm sorry, steady scratch-off winners. All right. Mm-hmm. So, but they're working it, and they're actually working it. And yes, this is something that people work on all the time. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
No, I do believe in what you're talking about, because when I was 17,
yeah.
my friend's mom in Staten Island, New York, she was a psychic, and she used to work with detectives to help find the missing kids. And I remember being in her living room one time, and she says, "Watch this," and she had a fork.
Yeah.
And she's bending it. It took about 20 minutes, and then when I touched it, the fork was getting very warm.
Yes.
And then it started to bend. And that was like, that's impossible.
Wow.
I mean, it actually bent. And then it was a group of psychics at our home another time, and there was about 5 of them in the living room. They made the house shake, like the walls, the house was shaking like there was an earthquake. So these abilities that some people have are quite amazing. Can you see the other side? Like, do you see dead people?
She does.
Only in dreams now. I don't know. No. I mean, I've seen shadow people. All right. But for example, like if I were going, I'm not like the Long Island medium. Okay. You know, if I were going shopping or something, it's like, oh, there's your Uncle Harry over here. He has a message for you. I'll do that. I don't have that. But when I'm doing a reading, I will see entities and people. But it's only when I have to go into I have to go into the dark to see. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I need to go into the dark to see. So usually if I'm doing a session, I'll use those mind folds, or, you know, I turn off my camera when I'm working on Zoom, and I just go into, you know, I'll take a piece of paper like that, it's blank. And then by the time I'm done, you know, it's all scribbled up with, you know, story and notes and seeings. And that's how I work. And I do work in the dark most of the time, though. That's, you know, where I do my work.
From what I do know about telepathic is that it is passed down. So if there is nobody in your family that you know that has this gift.
No, because I have a different interpretation of it, Julie. Julie, I believe that it's an inherited conversation. So it's learned. So meaning that I didn't learn it from anyone. I don't know where it came from. Maybe somebody else in the family had it, but nobody in my family spoke about it. Okay. Right. But now in my family, I make sure that my sons, I've got 3 sons, and one of them is 2 of them are highly telepathic. One of them loves tarot cards and runes and crystals and divination. And the other one is just super highly telepathic. Okay. So we'll be calling each other at the same time. So I do believe that this is an inherited conversation because they grew up with this. They saw me do it all the time. They see me talking about it all the time. So that therefore, because they have seen it, they're more open, especially my youngest son, who I took out to Washington with me, and put him in a school to teach him how to do telepathy and telekinesis and remote viewing and blindfolded archery. So he's, you know, this is his thing, even though he has a regular job, but that's still his thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's cool. You know, we went to a Tony Robbins when I think he was about 16 or something, 15 or 16. And I said, oh, we're going to Tony Robbins. I said, and you're going to walk across a bed of hot coal. And he's like, I am. I said, yeah, you are. And so we did.
Wow.
So you said everyone has the hot coal. I've seen that before. So this can help people in the everyday life. From what you're saying, this power and these abilities, and you said we all have it. We just had to learn how to utilize it.
Yeah.
So then, is it possible to turn negative situations that we're dealing with in the lifespan to positive situations by using these abilities?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that. Depends on what the situation is. I really, there are enough people believing that prayer, we know that prayer raises the consciousness of the planet. We know that collective prayer can heal people. So if this energy were now focused in such a way that we could start collectively we could make changes. We can alter certain things that happen on timelines. Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
And are there limitations to what you can do? I mean, we talked about the fountain, we talked about the spoon.
Well, I haven't won the lottery yet, Philip. Okay.
But are there any other things that you can do, like, or have done? Maybe turn the TV off.
No, I don't even try. And here's the thing that this is what I've never even tried. There was a time where I was turning on flashlights, the LED flashlights. So we'd take a small LED flashlight, put it into the position, not that it's completely off so that it's really tight to turn, but just kind of off so that it's not quite on, but it's not quite off. It's kind of like that feeling in between, almost.
Yes.
And then I would leave that on my bedside table and then go into the alpha state and then command it to turn on. And then I did it. The first time I did it, I fell asleep, and then I fell asleep while I was in the alpha state, and then the light went on, and that was what woke me up. And then the second time I did it, it was just, I was staring at it and it just did it. And the third time I did it, I was just staring at it and turned on. And then comes the question, okay, this is all great phenomena, but so what? Okay, like, what am I going to do with this? I'm not going to start a class on turning on flashlights. I'm not going to start a spoon bending class. So then I started to look at, well, what would it take to be able to do this kind of thing for the benefit of other people or something, you know what I mean? Like a greater cause. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's phenomenal, and it's great to be able to do, because I look at it like it's very empowering. And that's why I like to teach children to remote view, to see without their eyes, to do telepathic exercises, to really understand that they can raise their consciousness, and then they don't have to be insecure and follow the herd. They don't have to go the path of making sure that they fit in with everybody. They can speak for themselves. They can stand out and be unique because they want to be, and not cookie cutter because society demands that we all fit into the mold.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
This kind of reminds me of the healers, some of those healers that you see that people can't walk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're all fake cases, period, okay? But they're all real cases.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Where they're in churches and they can't walk, or they're not, and
it goes back to,
and I'm not saying that they're running around doing laps after the hill, but they can walk.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or somehow tumors are gone.
Yeah.
And that's a vibrational energy that the healer's putting out.
How do we explain that? In some cases?
There's the old the old from the physician, heal thyself. The body can heal itself if we allow the body to heal itself. I mean, many, many years ago, I went to see a healer in New York. Actually, she was from the Bronx, and I went to see her in Brooklyn. And she claimed to have healing powers where people would come into the church, and then she would be one of those healers, and then, all right. But I have to tell you, I don't know if it was an act, and I don't know how real she was, but I did get onto the stage with her, and she took my hand and held my hand, and my hand was on fire. It was on fire. My hand was so hot that when I went home, because my mom was babysitting, I went home and I said to my mother, feel my hand and tell me this is not your imagination. It's not my imagination. And my mom took my hands and she said, oh my God, your hand is hot. And I said, and that was hours ago.
Wow.
It was just really cool. So I do believe that particular, that I believe that woman has healing powers, and that she can, I don't know what she can do with her healing powers, but for sure I'm convinced she has them. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. And I believe in that. So let's talk about remote viewing.
Yes.
All right. So for people, in case people don't know, remote viewing is the ability to see over time, distance, and space without the use of our eyes. So we there's many there are different types of remote viewing, and I'm not going to go into all of them now, but there's, let's call it controlled remote viewing. Now, this nobody has to be psychic to remote view. This is a skill that can be learned and can be taught and learned. So with the children, I do it differently than conventional remote viewing. Remote viewing, again, in the conventional manner, let's say controlled remote viewing, someone is given a target. These are usually coordinates. These are places or things. And then you get a number and you go into your alpha state, or whatever it is that you do to go see your target. And then people draw images and do amazing things with their minds. Okay. And with the children, what I like to do is we put on these mindfolds. These are blinders so that it's totally in the dark. And then they are then asked to look into, sometimes I give them a treasure chest. There's a treasure chest that I have first that I show them. And then there's something in the treasure chest, and they get to take their consciousness and their awareness. And then we look in the treasure chest without their eyes, obviously. And then they draw what they see and they do their best not to label it. And one of the stories that I enjoy telling a lot is that I was doing a psychic development class for adults. And I had on my screen, it was on Zoom, I had an image of a manila envelope. And inside, even though it was an image, right? Inside the envelope, there was supposed to be an object. Okay. I mean, we have to use our imagination, right? So we had just finished looking at the manila envelope, and the mom was drawing something, and her 5-year-old son does a walk by, and he looks at her and he goes, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, I'm drawing what's in the envelope." He goes, "Oh, that's easy." And she goes, "Really?" And he sits down and he starts to draw an image. And he draws this character holding a sword, and he's wearing black, and his hair is black. And then he couldn't write yet. So he says to his mom, "It's power and dragons." And so later on, the mom shows me the image, and then I show her the image that I had on my screen, which was behind the manila envelope. Mine was Jon Snow, the character Game of Thrones, who was dressed all in black, holding a sword. And anybody who knows about Jon Snow knows that he does power and dragons. And here was this 5-year-old child who absolutely had a bullseye on that target.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Do
you think that some of the magicians, such as David Blaine, they have these amazing gifts beyond magic? Do you think they have these abilities that they're using as well sometimes?
I believe so. I think they have their tricks, and then they have their abilities. Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking. Because some of the things that they do now, the magicians, are just mind-blowing.
Wild.
Yeah.
It goes what you're saying, the remote viewing, the telekinesis.
Yes.
Especially, I've seen on America's Got Talent. There's some people out there that are just
amazingly,
they just blow you away with the techniques
talented.
and
Yeah.
You have been seen on NBC, CBS, Fox, and ABC. What have you done for these?
Oh, that was an interview. I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy is, he was like, he's still alive, but you've heard of Bob Proctor, correct? Maybe the Bob Proctor was in The Secret. Okay. So Brian Tracy is really one of the most influential men in sales and business and marketing and training how to use your mind in sales and in business. Okay. So they're all self-development, self-empowerment. And this is where a lot of the manifestation movement originated out of the teachings of people like Norman Vincent Peale and Brian Tracy and Clement Stone and all of these masters, okay, all of this. So Brian Tracy had a TV show, and I was on his TV show, and the man just absolutely amazing. So we spoke about my book, Annabelle and the Domino. And then we talked about using mental powers, because Brian definitely believes that we all have these abilities. And it was just real fascinating to meet him, because he's an icon in the industry, you know, especially in the business world. And yeah, so
Well, that must have been really exciting.
it was one of the it was close to one of the highlights of my life, also just being there with him, because he's cool. And then the thing that I loved the most was that when Brian and I took some photos afterwards, you know, so it was like that kind of thing. After the interview, you get to take, you know, took a photo, and our photo was the only photo that had this blue aura all around it, around Brian and myself. It was spectacular. Mm-hmm.
God, I love stories like that.
Yeah, it was really great.
You believe that the dead walk amongst us?
Say that again.
Do you believe that the dead, like
Walk
those
among
that are crossed over? I don't believe we don't die. I mean, that's my personal opinion. We
No.
call it death, but
Mhm.
energy is not created nor destroyed, so we do go on to another existence. But do you think that they're here with us in this realm, or they can come and go to different realms?
I think they come and go into different realms. I really do. We've all had these experiences, you know, and if we're honest with ourselves, we've all had these experiences, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I can recount, like after my mom died, you know, I had so many strange things that happened. And but don't we all, you know what I mean? Like when somebody who was really close to us passes away, I think that, but not everybody, you know, not everybody pays attention to the signs, is really what I think it is also. And I think that the people who do see the dead, or who do have communication, is because they're open to it, so they can come through into that realm and connect. Otherwise, if you're so not you, if people are so closed and so frightened, how are they going to get their messages through?
So true. It's so true. They're constant. I think they miss them a lot, miss all the little signs a lot, because they're just not open enough.
Yeah. And we miss so many signs in life anyway, because we're so in our minds when we're walking, and we're not focused, we're not present in the moment, and we're not paying attention. So we're so distracted that we miss so much of what's happening.
Yeah, it's
That's
very
true.
true. And if we're grieving too, I mean, if we're at the point where we're grieving terribly, we will definitely not see them, miss them.
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on? Do you believe in aliens, other life forms?
Aliens are not my thing, I have to be honest. And that doesn't mean that they don't, I'm not saying that they don't exist, because we know that it would be very absurd for me to think that we're the only people and entities. Okay. But I've just never devoted any time to aliens unless they show up in a reading when I'm doing readings. So there must be aliens. I mean, they come through in readings. And I did see UFOs when I lived in Washington. So, you know, yeah. But with that's like, you know, I lived right near a military base. So sometimes my son would say to me, Mom, you know, those might not be UFOs. Those might just be highly developed military things from the base that we don't know exist yet. And I said, I don't know. These things were too bizarre. I think they were UFOs.
Well, if they go really quick,
Yeah.
you know,
They
then
just like that, across, gone. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And let's talk about your book. So what inspired you to write your books?
All right. Well, the first one, Annabelle and the Domino, is an illustrated picture book, and it was it's based on a true account of a little girl at the school who did move the domino with her mind, and that takes a lot of focus, concentration. So it's, you know, the kids are taught to sit still and focus for, good 20 minutes, not to move, and most adults can't even sit still for 20 minutes and not move or scratch or anything. But the kids were taught that. And because amazing things happen with our minds when we can sit still like that and take control over our body and our focus and our concentration. And so she moved the domino, it fell. And I thought, this is a really great story. So I changed it around and, turned it into, more of a fiction story, but it based on, kind of loose.
Yeah, it's based on something.
Right. And so, and that was the first book. And then the second book that was the book that I met Brian Tracy with when I was talking about that. And then the second book that I wrote was Children Who Know How to Know. And that is a resource guide. So that's for adults and educators and anybody who wants to start. It's a simple, easy book. You can use it on yourself. You can use it, a child within. You can use it with other people. But if somebody wants to learn how to start to do these things, tap into your intuition, tap into your psychic abilities. It's a simple, easy resource guide. So that's the second one. And then the third book was written collaboratively. It was a collaboration with Betsy Chassie from What the Bleep Do We Know? And so we all got together, a few of us, and contributed stories to Dancing in the Unknown. So these were stories of courage and things that we did that was unusual. And then we had them put into a book, and that was the third book. And so then I have a dream interpretation guide, which is only Kindle on Amazon. And now I'm in the process of writing a young adult sci-fi espionage.
Wow.
Now.
There's a lot going on.
That's awesome.
The second book, that means the one about the, where to get the resources from, that's a really good book to have out there.
Yeah.
You really want to learn.
It's an easy read, and the exercises are so wonderful. Oh, and what I do want to share, if anybody's listening, that I have a free guide that people can go and download. It's on my website. It's ellymolina.com. And then the guide is in the PsyKids, PSIKIDS section. And then it's called What If? It's a 16-page free guide. And these are activities that you can do alone. You could do it with a kid. You can do these things by yourself. So it's like, you don't have to have a child. It's called 6 Ways to, tap into your child's inner magic. But that magic can be the inner child also. So it's not just for kids.
Wow.
That's awesome.
That's really great.
Wow. Well, we're at the top of the hour. I mean, this has been a really great show.
And
this is different.
Yeah.
Where can people find you and all that good stuff?
EllyMolina.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Any words of wisdom for our listeners out there before you go?
I'm going to say, just believe in yourself. If you want to do it, you can. Just believe in yourself and take that first step. Really, how do we do anything? We start, right? We just start.
Believe in yourself. I like that.
Thank
you so much for coming on Horsefly
Chronicles
Radio. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you
so much. And we'll be reaching out to you to go to Atlantic City.
Okay. Yes, please do. I live in New York. Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Special thank you to Carnation for fully sponsoring the show. We love them, and please join us next Monday night on the United Public Radio Network on 105.3 FM from New Orleans. And stay tuned for Trish Mel with The Missing Piece.
Have a great night, everyone. We'll catch you next week on Horsefly Chronicles Radio.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.